Welcome to our channel Lighting Vision. Today Mother will continue with the subject on the ideal couple, and she will show us or give us some example based on the model we have from our parents. Welcome Mother.
Thank you, Natalie.
So often you explain that we can copy or not the model of our parents. So either it's the same or we go completely opposite.
What we have seen in our childhood from our parents and the model that they gave us from their relationship, that's what we take with us consciously or unconsciously when we start having relationships ourselves. I already said it. Now, I already said there are also there are also different tendencies. Some people say, oh, I absolutely don't want to repeat what I've seen at home. Others feel quite well in that model and they repeat it without too much thinking about it. And then in between those extremes there are many varieties. I would say the best thing to do is, when you have difficulties, look back at what you have seen in your childhood to find if there is some similar behavior or some similarity in the difficulties. That is already a good way to take the difficulties out of their emotional context between the partners and make it more objective. Now you will see that when we are talking about schemes or models that you have had in front of you in your childhood, there is one thing very important in relationships, whether it's about your parents or yourself. That is the way people deal with conflict. Because whenever in the world, wherever you put two people together, you have a possibility of conflict, because there are two different tendencies coming together. And the first thing that you have to know is, in a human relationship, is that you have to learn to deal with difficulties that have the character of conflict. Because you have one opinion or one idea or one color or way of behavior, and the other one does not necessarily have the same way of seeing or doing it that you have. That seems very easily said and even done, and that's not the case. I think that the first reason why many couples do not succeed is because they do not know how to handle conflict. And that does not have to do with daring to be angry or not and saying out loud what you think at any moment of the day. That has to do with knowing what a conflict is about. So many couples have tendency to either never talk about conflicts and things that are important for them, whereas others constantly have conflicts and it never works. They never seem to resolve the problem. So you have two extremes, and that you will have basically seen at home also. You have couples, they never seem to have a conflict. They're always quite good, or even very good from the outside. And there are households where they constantly have struggles, and very often always the same ones. And they come back in a cyclic way, every new moon, every full moon. But in both of those two ways of behavior, the conflict is basically never resolved. Because those who avoid the conflict are not better, or are not better resolving their problems, as the ones that constantly have conflicts and never really resolve them neither. So that means that the conflict itself is the problem, the first problem a couple has to resolve. And where you have two people together, I already said, conflict immediately will come up. Now, you can speak it out or not. That's the first choice you have. But even when you don't speak it out, it's not a guarantee that it will work. It's because so many couples separate, and even if they stay together, they have no link anymore over the years, when they never work out their conflicts. Whereas others are constantly in conflict, and then they end up separating because they can't solve the problem that is on a deeper level in the conflict, hidden in the conflict. So I would say, when you are talking about the ideal couple, the first thing you have to talk about is conflict resolution. Knowing what the conflict is about and being able to solve this problem. And every couple has to deal with it. Now, you told me recently that having a conflict for a couple is felt as a negative thing. If you see a man and a woman or any kind of couple having a row or struggling or fighting, it gives a bad feeling to everybody. I think that is the first taboo we have to take away. Because basically it's better for the two partners to speak it out than to hold it inside, and then on the long run they drive away, they can't reach each other anymore. A conflict is nothing else than something that asks to be faced and resolved. Mm-hmm. Now the only question is, are you willing and able, as two partners, but at least one of them, because you do not absolutely need to be two to solve a conflict. In the beginning it's enough that one faces the problem. That will already change a lot. So if there's a conflict, it's enough that that one of the two says, I have to go deeper in this, because this has nothing to do with peeling the onions or the toothbrush on the sink or the kind of toothpaste we use or don't use. This has to do with something else, and that is the truth. You will see that in couples, very often, what they're fighting about has nothing to do with the real problem. That's the first basic rule you have to know.
So can you give us an example?
Yes, many couples are fighting, as I already said, about the toothbrush or the color of the walls or the wallpaper or the new car, and if that kind of conflict comes up often, what we will eat, whether we will use a fork or a knife, the conflicts very often in couples are basic. They are dealing with very simple issues.
And they have big fights over
small issues or things. But then you have to know that very often it has nothing to do with what they're fighting about.
It's profound.
The fight is only a reason, or like a red light that says there is a problem. There is a problem, but perhaps it's not that. Mm-hmm. And now the strange tendency in human being is to create fights over things that do not touch the main point. Because they want to say, I'm in danger, but I do not dare to touch the real problem, the sensible point. That is something you absolutely have to know in your own behavior and in the behavior of your partner and in all the couples in the world. I think a good psychologist will know that if they talk to him about the fights they are having, he will very often try to find out what is the real issue. Because he knows there's a big chance that it has nothing to do with going yes or no each Sunday to my stepmother. it has probably to do with something else. And now what's it all about? And then you come back on the first point I was already talking about. What kind of main issue are you dealing with in your family scheme? What are you, being a part of the family where you come from, trying to work out in your relationships as the working point of the whole of your family and your brothers and sisters and your parents and your grandparents, and they were all dealing with this point in many ways, in many various forms, but it's all the time the same thing. Are they dealing with inferiority or superiority? Are they dealing with masculine domination? Are they dealing with feeling very intelligent or not enough intelligent? Are they dealing with dependency or independency? It can take many colors. What you are working on as an individual in your life can take many forms, many colors. But this working point comes back in your relationships. And very often, as I already said, this working point is the working point for the whole of your family. So you will see it around you. Now, this is the working point that comes up in the conflict that takes a whole other form from the outside. So when you are constantly in a row about are we eating garlic or onions, do we close the curtains when it gets dark, or we leave them open? There are so many issues you can that are used by couples to start struggling or fighting. You have to find out what's it about behind the form. And that might be quite work, because it has to do with knowing yourself, knowing where you come from, knowing what the sensitive points are in yourself, and do you have the maturity and the distance towards yourself to look at that. Well, I will talk about that in the next videos. You can find out in a couple what it's about, if you know how to take the steps to discover the sensitive points. But you have to want this. And that's the question. Because many people are scared of that. Yeah. So you see a lot of couples where the main issues are never touched, never handled. It will never come up. Because both of the partners are afraid to deal with vulnerable sides in themselves. Well,
so the wounds from past lives?
That can be wounds from past lives. There can be vulnerable parts that have come up in their youth, or even in when they were a teenager. It can have to do with so many things. But one day you will almost be forced by life or by your relationships to face this, because it's not possible to hide it or to do as if it doesn't exist. The couples that are avoiding difficult points in their relationship, and so in themselves, because that's what it's all about, where in an involuntary way they will separate on the inner level. Even if they stay together in a marriage, they will separate on an inner level over the years. If the main points, conflictual points, that will invariably come up in any couple, because where you have two persons, I already said it and I insist, where there are two persons, there are things that do not always work harmoniously. That's normal. Now, if you do as if that does not exist, that is the best way to separate. Even if you stay together, you will not be together anymore. You will feel no link to the other one, and it's masquerade. It's something that doesn't exist. So if you want to stay in touch with the other, because if we talk about relationship, we talk about staying in touch with the other.
Being genuine.
Yes, it has to do with feeling a link on the emotional level. and even one day better on the spiritual level. But then you have to be able to look at what does not work in a couple. And that will take you, without any exception, to what for the moment is difficult and vulnerable in yourself. Mm. And that's what we'll talk about the next time.
Thank you, Mother. Wow. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that you will subscribe so you don't miss the next videos on that important topic. And we'll see you very soon. Don't forget to listen to the song and visit the website that are at following the description of this video. Have a beautiful day.
Kept in heaven's energies, an angel comes and takes us up to a land of light. Each night when we go to sleep, we're leaving earthly reality. We're stepping out of our clothes of dust in dresses bright. Silent night, starry sky, the moon shines, where am I? Silent night, peaceful dreams, carried over on silvery beams. Silent night, starry sky, the moon shines, where am I? Who remembers what he's been told up in heaven's paradise, where he is taught with loving care about wrong and right? Who remembers what he's been told by spirits so pure and wise? They protect us with true devotion all through the night. Silent night, starry sky, the moon shines, where am I? Silent night, peaceful dreams, carried over on silvery beams. Silent night, starry sky, the moon shines, where am I? Silent night, starry sky, the moon shines, where